Assalamualaikum and good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here today. I hope everyone is doing well. I would like to formally call this meeting to order. The purpose of today's meeting is to evaluate the AI-based educational solution proposed in Durant's group pitch and determine which recommendation or combination of recommendations we believe should be supported. Today, we will be reviewing the proposal in terms of their effectiveness, feasibility, impact, and overall practically in addressing the challenges identified by the speakers. Our goal is to assess both the strengths and limitations of the proposed solutions and ultimately reach a justified recommendation by the end of the meeting. Before we begin, let me introduce the teams and its roles. I am SYAHMI, and I'll be the chairing today's meeting. HASANAH will be served as our secretary and will be responsible for taking the minutes throughout the discussions. FARAHIN will act as the timekeeper and ensure that we remain on schedule and cover all agenda items within the allocated times. The remaining members are Anis and ADHAM, who will contribute to evaluation and discussion of the proposed solution. Thank you, everyone. Now, let me briefly outline today's agenda. There are 4 main items on today's agenda. First, we will review the key issues highlighted in the presentation. Second, we will evaluate each of the 5 proposed solutions by examining their strengths, weaknesses, feasibility, impact, and potential risks. Third, we will compare the proposal and determine which option appears to be the most viable and effective. Finally, we will attempt to reach a consensus and formulate our final recommendation. Does everyone agree with the agenda as presented?
Agree.
Excellent. If there are no objections, let's proceed to the first items of today's agenda. Before evaluating the proposals, I think it is important for us to establish a shared understanding of the problems identified by the speakers. Hasanah, could you begin by summarizing the first issues?
Certainly, SYAHMI. The first speaker highlighted that the limitation of traditional learning approaches, particularly their inability to accommodate students with different learning style and emotional needs. The speaker also argued that many educational systems continue to prioritize standardized teaching methods despite the diversity of student experience.
Thank you, Hasanah. Anis, could you summarize the second and third issues?
Of course, SYAHMI. The second speaker focused on lecturers' difficulty in monitoring students' performance, especially in large classes. As a result, struggling students may not be identified early enough to receive timely support. The third speaker raised concerns regarding students becoming increasingly dependent on AI-generated content. So, according to the speaker, excessive reliance on AI may gradually weaken originality, creativity, and also independent thinking.
Thank you, Anis. How about you, Adham?
The fourth speaker also discussed AI dependency, but from the perspective of academic integrity. The speaker suggested that students may misuse AI tools, leading to plagiarism, misinformation, and reduced academic accountability.
Excellent. Farahin, could you briefly summarize the final issues?
Certainly, SYAHMI. The fifth speaker focused on the growing mismatch between higher education and also industry's needs. Speaker argued that universities are struggling to keep pace with rapidly changing technological development and also labour market demands.
Thank you, Farahin. Based on these summaries, would it be fair to say that all 5 speakers are essentially attempting to answer one question: how can universities integrate AI effectively while maintaining educational quality, academic integrity, and meaningful human development?
I think that's a fair assessment, SYAHMI.
I also agree with you, SYAHMI. Although the speaker approached the issue from different perspectives, they appear to share the same overall objective.
Excellent. Now that we have established a shared understanding of the issues, let's move on to the evaluation stage of our meeting. As agreed in our agenda, we will evaluate each proposal based on effectiveness, feasibility, impact, sustainability, and potential limitation. Let's begin with the first proposals. The first proposal is the AI mode adaptive learning system. According to the speakers, the system will analyze students' emotional states and learning progress before adjusting educational content accordingly. Before discussing any limitations, I would like us to first identify what we see as the proposal's main strength. Hasanah, would you like to start?
Certainly, SYAHMI. One of the most compelling aspects of this proposal is its personalized approach to learning. Unlike traditional educational models, the system recognizes that students learn differently and may require varying level of support. This is a particularly strong feature because it acknowledges that emotional well-being can influence academic performance.
That's an interesting observation, Hasanah. Anis, what's your assessment?
I mostly agree with Hasanah's evaluation. Another strength is that the proposal appears to adopt a more holistic understanding on education, and as a result, the system could potentially improve both student engagement and also academic achievement.
That's a valuable point, Anis. ADHAM, do you think the benefit identified by Hasanah and Anis outweigh the potential challenges?
From my point of view, to some extent, yes. However, I am slightly hesitant to support the proposal fully. While the concept is certainly innovative, one major limitation concerns the reliability of emotional analysis. We have to understand that human emotions are highly complex and often difficult to interpret accurately. Even trained professionals occasionally struggle to identify emotional states correctly. Therefore, I would question whether AI can consistently provide accurate assessment.
I would like to build on Adham's point. In my opinion, if the system incorrectly interprets a student's emotional condition, the resulting recommendation may be inappropriate. For an example, a student may appear disengaged due to personal circumstances unrelated to academics. The system could mistakenly classify that student as academically struggling and provide unsuitable interventions.
That's a very valid concern, Farahin. Would anyone like to comment on the proposal's feasibilities?
Yes, I would, SYAHMI. In my opinion, although the proposal is innovative, I think its feasibility may be limited by implementation costs. This is because developing a system capable of accurately analyzing emotional data would likely require a substantial investment in software, infrastructure, and technical expertise. Therefore, universities with limited resources may struggle to implement such a system effectively.
What about privacy concerns? Do you think they represent a significant obstacle?
Absolutely, SYAHMI. One notable weakness of the proposal is its reliance on highly sensitive personal information. Compared with attendance records or assessment results, emotional data raises considerably greater privacy concerns. I think students may feel uncomfortable knowing that their emotional states are being monitored and analyzed continuously.
I agree with Farahin. In fact, I would argue that privacy concerns may represent the proposal's greatest limitation. This is because without robust safeguard and clear consent procedures, implementation could become highly controversial.
Thus, based on our discussion, it appears that the proposals offer significant benefit in terms of personalizations and student support. However, its feasibility may be weakened by concerns relating to emotional accuracy, implementation costs, and data privacy. Would everyone agree with that overall assessment?
Agree.
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. Excellent. Let's now move on to the second proposal, which is Smart Track AI. As we heard earlier, this proposal used AI to monitor attendance, participations, and assessment performance in order to identify students who may be academically at risk. Hasanah, since you reviewed this proposal, could you start us off?
Not a problem, SYAHMI. In my view, one of the strongest aspects of Smart Track AI is its practicality. Unlike the previous proposal, this system relies on information that universities already collect, such as attendance records and assessment results. Therefore, the implementation appears considerably more feasible and cost-effective.
That's an interesting observation, Hasanah. Would anyone like to expand on that point?
I would, SYAHMI. Compared with the mode adaptive learning system, Smart Track AI appears to offer more realistic solution. The first proposal requires sophisticated emotional analysis technology, whereas Smart Track AI primarily uses existing institutional data. Therefore, this significantly reduces both implementation costs and operational complexity.
I personally agree with Adham's assessment. Another major strength is its ability to support early intervention. One of the most compelling aspects of this proposal is that it enables lecturers to identify struggling students before academic problems become severe. I think that could potentially improve student retention and also overall academic performance.
That's a strong point from both of you. If Smart Track AI were implemented in universities, what do you think would be its most significant benefit from a student's perspective?
In my opinion, its greatest benefit would be early intervention. In many cases, lecturers only become aware of academic difficulties after poor examination results are released, and by that stage, the problem may already have become quite serious. This proposal appears particularly valuable because it allows potential warning signs to be identified much earlier. As a result, lecturer could provide timely support before students experience significant academic decline, and for that reason, I think the proposal has the potential to improve both student retention and also academic success rates.
I indeed would love to add Hasanah's and Anis' point, which I would also argue that academic performance cannot always be measured through numerical indicators alone. Sometimes, some students may be facing personal and emotional challenges that are not reflected in attendance records or examination scores.
That's a fair observation from all of you. In my opinion, while the system appears highly effective in identifying academic risks, it also may not fully capture the underlying causes of the student difficulties.
So would it be fair to say that the proposal is effective at identifying symptoms but may not always identify root causes?
In my opinion, yes, SYAHMI, I think that's an accurate assessment.
That's an interesting comparison. Would everyone agree that despite certain limitations, Smarter AI currently appears more feasible than the mood adaptive learning system?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. At this stage, would it be fair to say that Smarter AI is one of the strongest proposals we have evaluated so far?
I would certainly support that view, SYAHMI.
Let's proceed to the third proposals. The third speakers propose encouraging original thinking, creativity, and human-centered skills in order to reduce students' over-dependence on AI-generated content. Anis, since you reviewed this proposal, would you like to begin?
Certainly, SYAHMI. One of the most compelling aspects of this proposal is that it focuses on preserving uniquely human capabilities. So the speakers correctly highlight that education should not merely produce academic results, but also cultivate creativity, critical thinking, and also emotional intelligence. So these remaining valuable skills that AI could not easily replicate.
That's an important point, Anis. Farahin, what is your assessment?
I absolutely agree with Anis. I think the proposal appears particularly valuable because it addresses a long-term educational concern. As AI becomes increasingly sophisticated, students may become more dependent on technology, and encouraging originality and independent thinking could therefore help maintain educational quality.
If I may, I would also like to add that employers continue to value communication skills, creativity, and problem-solving abilities. For that reason alone, the proposal may contribute positively to graduate employability.
Those are certainly significant strengths. However, are there any limitations we should consider?
Yes, there is. I see your point, but I'm not entirely convinced that the proposal is practical in its current form. The speaker himself identifies an important problem, but the proposed solution lacks of specificity.
Could you explain what you mean by that, ADHAM?
Certainly, SYAHMI, the proposals tell us what universities should achieve, but not how they should achieve it. For instance, should universities introduce oral examinations, or maybe should they redesign assessment? Should they increase project-based learning? The implementation strategy remains vague and unclear.
I agree with ADHAM to some extent, but although the proposal lacks the operational details, I think its underlying objective remains highly relevant.
In my point of view, I think that's a fair observation. I think the proposal's concept is certainly stronger than its implementation strategy.
However, in my opinion, compared with Smarter AI, I think this proposal is considerably less feasible because it lacks a clear implementation framework.
That's an interesting comparison, Hasanah. Would anyone argue otherwise?
Not necessarily, SYAHMI. I think the proposal addresses an important issue here, but its limitations appear more serious than they initially seem. Without a clear implementation strategy, its impact may be difficult to achieve in practice.
Therefore, can we conclude that the proposal identifies an important educational challenge but lacks sufficient implementation details to be considered highly feasible?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. Let's move on to the fourth proposals. The fourth speakers propose introducing mandatory AI disclosure requirements for academic assignment. Students will be required to declare how AI tools were used throughout their work. ADHAM, could you begin the evaluation?
Surely, SYAHMI. One of the key strengths of this proposal is that it promotes academic accountability. Rather than banning AI completely, The proposal recognizes that AI is already part of the modern education and seeks to encourage responsible use.
Thank you, ADHAM. How about others?
Yes, I do agree. I think one of the proposal's most practical features is its realism. Students are unlikely to stop using AI entirely. Therefore, encouraging transparency appears more achievable than attempting to prohibit AI usage together.
I agree with HASANAH. I think the proposal also provides lecturers with greater visibility regarding how students use AI in their academic work. This may help maintain academic integrity while still allowing students to benefit from technological tools.
Excellent. How about Anis?
So my primary concerns is related to the enforcement. The proposal depends heavily on students' honesty. Students who misuse AIs may simply choose not to disclose the full extent of their usage.
If I may add on with what Anis said just now, while the proposal promotes transparency, it does not necessarily prevent academic misconduct.
That's an important distinction. So, would it be fair to say that the proposal addresses symptoms rather than root causes?
I think that's an unreasonable assessment.
How does this proposal compare with the third proposal on original thinking?
In my opinion, while both proposals attempt to address AI dependency, I would like to argue that the transparency policy is more feasible because it provides a clear implementation strategy.
Excellent comparison. Based on our discussion, can we conclude that the proposal is practical and relatively easy to implement, but may be insufficient as a standalone solutions?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you, everyone. We have now completed our evaluation of 4 proposals. Before we moving on to the final proposal, let's briefly recap. At this stage, Smart Track AI appears to be the strongest proposal in terms of feasibility and immediate impact. The Mood Adaptive Learning System appears highly innovative but faces significant challenges relating to privacy and implementations. The original thinking proposal addresses an important issues but lack operational detail. Meanwhile, the AI transparency policy appears practical but may not fully address AI dependency. Would everyone agree with this interim assessment?
Agreed.
Excellent. Let's now move on to the final proposal, Skin-Sensed AI. As we heard from the presentation, these proposals aims to bridge the gap between higher education and industry requirement by using AI to analyze labor market trends and recommend relevant skills to students. Farahin, since you reviewed this proposal, could you begin the discussions?
Certainly, SYAHMI. In my opinion, one of the strongest aspects of skill-seeking AI is its irrelevance to current workplace demands. Many graduates face difficulties securing employment because their skills do not always align with industry expectations. This proposal appears particularly valuable because it attempts to address the issue directly.
That's a strong point, Farahin. Would anyone like to expand on that?
Yes, I would, SYAHMI. In my opinion, one notable strength of this proposal is its forward-looking approach. Unlike some of the previous solutions, which focus primarily on current academic challenges, Skillsync AI seeks to prepare students for future employment opportunities. As a result, its long-term impact could be substantial.
I agree with HASANAH. The proposal could potentially help university become more responsive to changing labor market demand, and this is especially important given how rapidly technology and workplace requirements continue to evolve.
Interesting. ADHAM, how would you evaluate the proposal effectiveness?
Overall, I think it appears highly promising. One of the most compelling aspects of the proposal is its use of real-time labor market data. Therefore, if implemented effectively, universities could make more informed decisions regarding curriculum development and skill training. Consequently, graduates may be better prepared for employment.
Those are certainly significant strengths. However, let's now consider the limitation. Farahin, could you begin?
One limitation is that labor market predictions are not always accurate, SYAHMI. Although AI can identify trends, it cannot perfectly predict future economic conditions. Unexpected events may quickly make forecasts outdated.
Personally, I agree with Farahin. This is because the COVID-19 pandemic demonstrated how rapidly and quickly labor market conditions can change. Many industries experience significant disruption despite previous forecasts suggesting stability.
That's a very valid observation. Would anyone like to comment on feasibility?
I have something to comment on that. While the proposal appears beneficial, implementation may be more complicated than it initially seemed. The system requires cooperation between universities, employers, industry partners, and also potentially government agencies. And achieving that level of coordination might be challenging.
That's an interesting perspective. So would it be fair to say that since AI offers strong long-term benefits but faces moderated implementation challenges?
Agreed.
Excellent. That concludes our evaluation of all 5 proposals. We can now move on to the comparison and decision-making stage of our meeting. Let's begin with effectiveness. Which proposal do you believe is the most effective in addressing the issues identified in the presentations?
If I may begin, in terms of effectiveness, I would nominate Smart Track AI. This is because the proposal directly addresses a clearly defined problem and provides a practical mechanism for early intervention. Furthermore, its outcome appears measurable.
Interesting. Does anyone hold a different view?
I agree to some extent. However, I think skills in AI should also be considered highly effective because it addresses employability, which was one of the major concerns identified by the 5 speakers.
That is a fair point from Farahin. I think the distinction is that the Smart Track AI addresses immediate academic challenges, whereas Skill Sync AI addresses future workforce challenges.
An excellent comparison. So would it be fair to say that both proposals are effective but they address different dimensions of the problems?
Agreed.
Okay, now let's begin. Consider feasibility. Which proposal appears more realistic and achievable?
For me, Smart Track AI clearly stands out. The proposal relies on existing institutional data and infrastructure, and as a result, implementation appears relatively straightforward.
I strongly agree with Anis. Compared with Mode Adaptive Learning System and Skills in AI, Smart Track AI requires significantly fewer resources and less coordination.
I would support that HASANAH's view. There is a strong case for prioritizing Smart Track AI because it offers a favorable balance between effectiveness and practicality.
Does anyone disagree?
Not necessarily. While skills in AI may have broader long-term benefit, I agree that Smart Track AI appears more feasible in the short term.
Let's move on to the long-term impact. Which proposal is likely to produce the most lasting benefits?
In my opinion, I think skills in AI perform particularly well in this category. By helping students develop industry-relevant skills, the proposal could potentially influence employability outcomes for many years.
I definitely agree with Farahin. The proposal may also encourage stronger collaboration between university and industry, which could create benefits beyond university students.
That's true, Hasanah. However, I think the original thinking proposal should also be acknowledged. Although it lacks implementation detail, it emphasizes on creativity and critical thinking addresses skills that would remain valuable regardless of the technological change.
In fact, I agree with Anis. The proposal's concept is strong. Its weakness lies not in its objective, but in the absence of a clear implementation framework.
Excellent. Thank you for those evaluation, everyone. Now, based on the evidence presented, which proposal should we recommend?
If I may, SYAHMI, after weighing the strengths and limitations of all 5 proposals, I would recommend Smart Track AI because its effectiveness, feasibility, and scalability make it the most viable option overall.
I support that recommendation, Safi. While other proposals certainly have merit, Smart Track AI appears to offer the clearest pathway to implementation.
I agree. However, I think skills in AI should not be disregarded entirely. Although it may be more challenging to implement, its long-term benefit remains significant.
That's an interesting suggestion. Anis, what is your view?
After weighing the strength and also limitation of all 5 proposals, I would prioritize Smart Track AI. Compared to the other solution, it appears to offer the strongest balance between effectiveness, feasibility, and also sustainability. While the Mode Adaptive Learning System is highly innovative and Skills in AI offers considerable long-term benefit, Smart Track AI appears more realistic and immediately actionable. And furthermore, this proposal relies on existing institutional data, which significantly reduces implementation barriers. And for this reason, I believe that Smart Track AI represents the most practical starting point for universities seeking to enhance student support through AI.
That's a thoughtful recommendation. Would anyone oppose a combined approach that prioritizes Smart Track AI while integrating elements of skill AI where appropriate?
No.
Based on evaluation, we unanimously recommend prioritizing smarter AI as the primary solution. This recommendation is justified by three key considerations. First, the proposal demonstrates strong feasibility because it utilizes existing university data and infrastructure. Second, it offers immediate and measurable benefit through early identification and intervention for at-risk students. Third, it appears sustainable and scalable across different institutional contexts. In addition, we recommend that university gradually incorporate selected elements of skills AI to strengthen long-term workforce readiness and improve alignment between education and industrial needs. Overall, we believe that this combined approach offers the most balanced and practical response to the challenges identified in the presentation. Thank you everyone for your valuable contribution throughout today's discussion. To summarize, our group has agreed to recommend smarter AI as the primary solution, supported by selected element of skills AI as a complementary long-term strategy. Hasanah, could you please ensure that today's discussion and final recommendation are reflected accurately in the meeting minutes?
Certainly, Syahmi. I will finalize the minutes based on today's discussion and consensus.
Thank you, Hasanah. Farahin, were we able to complete all agenda items within the allocated times?
Yes, Syahmi, all agenda items have been covered successfully within the scheduled time frame.
Excellent. If there are no further comments or matters arising, I would like to formally adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for your participation, and I hope everyone has a pleasant day ahead. Assalamualaikum and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.